G'day there. So we've got running water in Sid now, 140 litres of water on board, and it was a challenge. I can tell you, it's probably one of the hardest things I've had to do in a car. I nearly gave up. So yeah, I'll show you how it all happened, show you what went wrong, and then I'll tell you what I probably would have done differently to make it a bit easier. So here we go. So I decided I wanted running water in Sid just to make life a little bit more comfortable when we're on the road. Found myself a couple of tanks which fit in perfectly. They were pretty cheap. I thought, yeah, beauty, a few $100, we'll smash this out in a weekend. Yeah, nah, couldn't have been further from the truth. So I wanted to put them right up underneath the tray here as the perfect spot. I made up some brackets using a bit of galvanised flat bar and some RHS. Just folded them up to fit the tanks, leaving a little bit of a gap so I could put some rubber in there. It's quite simple, just folded them up in my shop press. Banged them out with a hammer where I needed to, and I think that worked out pretty good. Cut them to size. Worked out where I needed to put the holes, drilled everything, welded them together, and it all came together pretty good, I think. They look quite tidy, and they custom fit. Cut up some foam rubber, cleaned up the edges, did all the usual stuff, and there they are there, all looking pretty good. Just another shot there. Stuck them together. Well, put some goop on there for the foam rubber. Stuck the rubber on there, both sides. Now, it didn't quite allow enough room for that rubber. It's a bit thicker than the stuff I had in mind, but you'll see down the track we made it work. Got myself some fittings, brass fittings, because, you know, brass fittings make more sense because it's more robust. Got some taps and bits and pieces. Cut out some brackets and all the stuff I needed. Worked out a good position for the tap, which is at the back. There's some more bits and pieces with some tools that I used. That's the tap at the back. They're the two filler points which I mounted at the back as well. So I wanted to use robust fittings, so I thought, not being a plumber, I thought to myself, get some brass ones. I mean, they're going to be strong. Main idea was that I didn't want stones. I flick up a lot of stones on some of these roads. I didn't want them breaking the plastic bits and pieces, so I thought brass fittings, you beauty, that'll work. Yeah. Probably should have stuck with the plastic ones because it just made life a lot more difficult. So the issue with the brass fittings is that they're heavy, and the tanks themselves, the threads on the tanks, aren't really strong enough to handle the weight. But we persisted, had to lift the tray off the ute, which was a real pain in the butt. So we only lifted it on one side. And then I went about drilling some holes so that the brackets would fit. I was able to use some of the existing factory holes, but I did have to make some additional holes to make it work. It's just another photo of the tray being lifted. I took lots of photos, obviously, because yeah, it was a real pain in the neck. The tank's going in. It really was a tight squeeze, and it was really hard to get the brackets done up. Trying to get the nuts on the bolts was really difficult. I had to lever the tanks and set up leverage systems. It was, yeah. So at this point I'm just about ready to give up on this project. It's got me beat. It's been way harder than I expected. I just cannot, there's not enough room to get up in there to get the bolts in. It's very tight. I've had to lift the tray off. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to finish this one. But I did forge on. I got one of the tanks in at this stage, and it fits in pretty good, but it was hard work, eh? Like, it was really hard. I had to relocate the reservoirs for the suspension, ended up mounting them on the cross member of the tray. That itself was really difficult, just trying to get your fingers in there to do up the nuts and bolts. It was just a nightmare. Well, I got one tank in, but I'm going to call it a night. Absolutely buggered. I'll get the second one in tomorrow. Well, first tank is in. Took me all day just to get that first tank in. This is way harder than I ever expected. Gonna try and get the second tank in today. First tank might have to come out again. Got a bit of a issue with the breather position, so I'm bracing myself for day 2. So I prepared the tubes. I had to use a little bit of heat. It was cold, just so they'd slip over the nipples there. Tried putting a clamp on it. The clamps were too big, or the nipples were too small, so I ended up just using a cable tie, which actually worked really well. And these are just for the breathers. Now, that's the issue I was talking about with the breather. It was right up against the cross member. Ended up leaving it like that. Got it all prepared with the hoses. Got it all ready to go in. And started putting in the next tank. Lever and everything up. It was really hard work trying to get those nuts on the bolts, but in the end I got there. This is where I ran all of the breathers and hoses. Those are the breather ends, the stones, and they actually went up inside the headboard rail to keep them up out of the water and mud. Just put some split conduit over the hoses just to tidy everything up there, make it look a little bit neater. Drop the pin out of the pump in the chassis there. It was a pain to get out, and fit a valve here to be able to drain the tanks whenever I want. I fitted the pump right up high underneath the tray behind the tap just there. Rightio. This really did seem like a flawless plan in the planning process, but I'm not convinced it's going to really be very good, particularly on rough tracks. So I've got a number of issues at the moment. I've got some leaks. That's okay. That's you know, it's normal. Just got to fix them. A little bit concerned about tanks themselves because they are quite bulgy. I just don't know how they're going to handle the rough tracks. But anyway, I'll fix up the leaks. There's one up in there in the filler somewhere, wherever it is. I don't think I'll worry about that. It's only a very, very small leak, and it's a big job to get that out again. So I don't think I'm going to worry about it. Everywhere else, no leaks. There's no leaks, which really surprises me. I was expecting leaks around there. So we'll see how we go around this side here. I'm gonna have to put a valve in there somewhere because the pressure, these sit lower than the top of the tank, so a little bit of back pressure there from the, you know, down the line is leaking, which for some reason I didn't really think about, but anyway, that's why I'm not a plumber, I guess. Alrighty, so I'm going to get some inline valves for there, just to stop the backflow. That's no big deal, it'll take about 5 seconds to put in. Rectified all the other leaks. Everything seems to be okay. I've got a little leak coming from the inlet up the top there, which I'm going to have to take a look at some point. It's not going to be an easy job. I'm going to drop that out to do that, so I'll just leave it for a bit, see if it takes up. Sometimes they do. Alrighty, so big moment. Got a switch there, turn the pump on and off. It's actually a double throw switch for a second pump that's going to go in down the track. So switch on. There we go. Water as you need it. Okay, so it's been a few months since I shot that video, and I can tell you that I am very pleased with the outcome. We have done a trip out to Birdsville since I shot that video, and the conditions were quite harsh. It was wet conditions, and the tracks were quite rough and tough going. Tanks handled it, no worries at all. All my concerns were really unwarranted. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. The convenience of having that water just whenever you need it is just so much better than carrying jerry cans and having to move stuff around to get your water out and so on and so forth. Things I would do differently, I perhaps would use those plastic taps, 6 of one, half dozen of the other, because my way of thinking is that the plastic ones might be easier to put in, but still, if you have a big rock come up and it knocks a tap off or a fitting off and you lose all your water, well, that's a big problem. You know, especially if you're out in the desert. So it's up to you. Depends what kind of driving you do, where you go, and all those sort of things you need to think about. I also would probably put a plate or a board or something underneath, you know, between the brackets and the tank, underneath the tank, just to support it a bit. The way the tank bulges out a bit kind of concerns me, but again, it doesn't seem to be a problem. The tanks seem to be handling it. They're obviously made for it. So all in all, I'm very happy with it. It's like I said, the convenience is just fantastic. You can get out, wash your hands whenever you like, you know, after working on the car or whatever. You've just got that water there and plenty of it, so if you need to have a bit of a shower, you've got plenty of water there to do that. Keep in mind that 140 litres is around about 140 kilos, so you need to take that into consideration when you're loading your vehicle. So that's it. That's another project done, and thank you very much for watching.